Greetings, my friends. Today I have something different for you. In light of world events, I feel like we all need to relax a little bit more. I don't think anybody needs to hear me talk about everything I'm doing in a video. I kind of need an escape, and I think we all do. So I was listening to some stories while I was working on my project, and it wasn't long until I found my brainwaves just really settling down, and it was the most calm I'd felt in a long time. So I decided I would share that experience with you by reading you two short stories. These stories are by Beulah Lee Harris. She's a Facebook friend with loads of talent. And I'll put a link to her in the description box below the video. And I'll also put a link to any products I used in case you see something that you like. So let's get started on a little bit of quiet time and relaxation. You can watch the video and listen, or you can just listen, whatever makes you feel better. The Wishing Well by Beulah Lee Harris. Poppy crouched between the hazel and maple shrubs, comfortable on her blanket of grass and weeds, watching the wishing well. It was a very old well, and no one could draw water from it anymore, but Poppy liked to sit and watch as people tossed their pennies in and made wishes. Mostly they just made their wishes silently. Some prayed silently too, and she knew this because they put their hands together and closed their eyes, or looked up at what sky could be seen through the forest foliage. Perhaps they looked up because they were hoping God was watching them, and would notice that they really did throw a penny in and not a pebble. Sometimes, not many, but some, spoke their wishes out loud, not knowing that Poppy was there watching and listening. Some wishes she remembered more than others. One woman wished her husband would go to work away so she could stop having babies. Another wished for her son to stop thieving, and another wished for a child. Just one would be blessing. One man wished for his brother to die so that he could inherit the farm, and another wished his wife would love him more, and another wished for a new horse. One man wished for something to be bigger, but Poppy could not hear what it was. Perhaps it was his house, because it ended with that S sound. Poppy did not know if their wishes came true or not, but she knew that the shopkeeper, Mrs. Streets, had not, because her wish was for her husband to stop beating her. But just the other day she was serving in the shop, battling to see through two black eyes. Still, Poppy wished she had a penny, lots of pennies, because she had a lot of wishes of her own. A lady she had never seen before was walking among the trees, picking and filling a basket. She was beautiful in a long, flowing purple dress, her black, glossy hair flowing freely down her back. She wore a long pendant with a purple stone that sparkled in the sunlight. She could be a princess or even a witch. Poppy crept out of her hiding place. "What are you doing?" she asked, and she was rewarded with eyes that lit up and a wide, happy smile. "Hello there. I'm picking plants for medicine. What are you doing?" "Just watching." Poppy bit her thumbnail as she often did when she wondered what to say or ask. "Are you a witch?" Lady's laughter tinkled melodiously like the river when it trickled over pebbles. "No, I'm a healer. Look." She knelt down and showed Poppy the contents of her basket. "I dry these marigolds to make a balm for bites and stings. And this is Lady's mantle, also good for cuts and even aching muscles." She lifted the elderflower. "This is wonderful. It can cure most anything." "Is it magic?" "Sort of. Do you believe in magic?" "Sometimes." Poppy looked doubtfully at the well. "You wish you had a penny, don't you?" Poppy nodded, wide-eyed. How did she know that? "What is it that a little girl like you could possibly want so much?" "It's not that." Poppy looked at the lady's eyes and felt she could trust her. "It's more something I don't want, something I wish was not there." "Oh, well," the lady smiled. "You don't need a penny for that. You see, this well is magic. All you have to do is take something that belongs to that person and throw it in the well, and they will never bother you again." "Really? But is that not thieving?" "Perhaps, but it's not bad if it's something small that they do not use or will not miss. And it's certainly not bad if you take it from a bad person. With that, the lady stood up, waved her fingers at Poppy, and disappeared between the trees toward the dense and dark parts of the forest, the parts Poppy was forbidden to go. When Poppy got home, she was in trouble. "Where have you been, missy?" Her always angry stepmother glared down at her with popping blue eyes. "Look at you, you're dirtier than a ragamuffin." She grabbed Poppy by the hair and pulled her inside. Poppy winced, but knew better than to protest or cry out in pain. "Off to wash, you, before your father gets home." Poppy was washed and ready for supper when her father got home. They all sat down to a delicious meal of potatoes roasted in pig fat and thick slices of charred pork belly and applesauce. Her stepmother was nice to her then. She was always nice when father was around, but only then. Later, she was in her little room, practicing numbers for school. How she hated school. But she tried hard because she hated being the stupid one in the class. She could hear her father and stepmother laughing in the kitchen. Her stepmother's laugh was evil, Poppy thought. She cackled like a witch. No, it was more like a duck quacking, an evil duck, if there was such a thing. The temptation was too great to resist. She crept into the room and quickly, with a racing heart, she took one of the thimbles from her stepmother's dresser. The day after Poppy tossed the thimble into the well, her stepmother died. She got home from school to find crowds of people, and some, including her father, were crying. She had been trampled to death by a horse in town that morning. Poppy felt relieved, scared, and ashamed. Sad for her father, scared that she had caused it, and ashamed because she thought she had. She never meant for her stepmother to die. As time heals at its own pace, time was healing her father, and Poppy's fear and guilt lessened. She never saw the lady in purple near the well again. Life was easier at home for Poppy now. Her grandmother had come to live with them and take care of them. Poppy smiled, enjoying her apple pie, thinking that school was the only thing now that made her unhappy. What if? No, she would not dare. She could not, but she did. The following afternoon, Poppy waited patiently as a young girl threw a penny in the well. The little girl was crying, and normally Poppy would feel sadness and empathy, but not today. She was relieved when the girl walked away and Poppy could complete her mission. She took up the box of chalk from her apron pocket and she tossed it in the well. Running home, Poppy felt gleeful in anticipation and wondered what would happen. It was the longest night of her young life. She was very disappointed the next morning when her grandmother hurried to get her on her way to school. Sighing, Poppy was about to begin her long walk to tedium and stupidity when her father burst in the kitchen. "Lord have mercy," her grandmother held her hand to her heart, "scaring an old woman like that." "Sorry, but it's the school. I hurried back to tell Poppy not to go. It burnt down last night." Life was wonderful. The school would take weeks to rebuild, and Poppy could enjoy lazy, happy, school-free days. She wished she could find the lady in purple again to thank her. One morning, Poppy ventured farther into the forest than she had ever dared before. She found a little pathway winding the tall evergreens toward the river, and she heard it, that tinkling laughter. She followed the melodious sound to the quaintest cottage she had ever seen. The door was open. Poppy went inside. On the larger kitchen table, she saw the pendant, the one with the purple stone. Poppy held it up to the light in wonder, and she heard the laughter again. Following the short path down to the river, Poppy saw the lady. She was frolicking in the water, and she was naked. It seemed such fun. Poppy wanted to join her and was about to strip off her clothing when she saw her father. He was there frolicking in the water with the lady, and he was naked too. Poppy ran back up the path, her shocked tears blinding her as she bumped into a tree. She sat on the grass and cried for what seemed to be a long time. Then she picked herself up and headed for the comfort of home. When she was nearly there, she realized that she still had the pendant with the purple stone in her hand. Poppy did not hesitate. She turned around and ran to the wishing well. The end. So, I think that was an interesting story. And now I will read you another. Our second story, also by Beulah Lee Harris, is called Hollies. It sounds like it's risque at the beginning, but it's really not. Holly has a whorehouse, Frankie was saying. He had the patrons of the village pub hanging on to his every word. But then he had their attention from the moment he walked in. After being away for so long, his visit home was a rare treat for everyone. As soon as word got out, "Our Frankie's back," the pub filled like a bookshop having a J.K. Rowling reading. The villagers set aside their Saturday afternoon plans as they took every seat available or jostled for elbow room at the bar. After lots of hugging and kissing and backslapping greetings and drinks being passed across the bar faster than Torval and Dean on skates, the noise settled and Frankie positioned himself to address his rapt audience. He told them how he enjoyed running his little bakery in the Cotswolds and about his brother Mikey, who was doing well enough now that he was off the drugs and had a steady job managing a grocery store in Manchester, and that his parents were content in Cornwall, where they had inherited a charming house from his uncle and ran a B&B. Yes, things were looking up for the Dawsons. It was a far cry from the years before when they had struggled for a living here and relied on this very community for the food they ate and the clothes they wore. It was a kind of like a fairy tale, a rags to riches story, and the villagers delighted in every satisfying detail. "And Holly?" someone asked. "How's our Holly doing?" "Heard she's up in Northumberland." "Yes, she is. She's doing very well indeed, better than all of us." Frankie took a long drink of his lager. Then, instead of using the lie he had practiced about her running a dress shop, he found himself saying, "Holly has a whorehouse." There was a short, stunned silence. Then someone cheered and the comments and questions flowed. "Good for her. Bet she's making good money. Upmarket place, is it? Good tourism in that area. What with Scotland just up the road. Always knew she had a good business brain." And a good business brain she had indeed. Holly Dawson looked out of her office window at the quaint cobbled U-line street below. There had been a lot of resistance and protest when she'd first opened up Holly's, but now it was accepted for what it was, a decent, well-run place that served the community as well as the many tourists that flocked to the seaside town for its historical beauty and its magical castles and hiking trails close by and great fish and chips, and now Holly's. She was well liked by all the townies except for one fly in the ointment. Determined to make something of her life and to be a success despite not having the money to further her studies, Holly had moved to London as soon as she had saved enough for the train fare, a few nights accommodation. Within days, she had a job working at a posh hotel, cleaning by day and waitressing at night. It soon became a live-in, clean by day, waitressing by night position, especially once her parents had come into their inheritance and did not need her financial help anymore. She was able to save most of her money. Holly moved to Bride's Fair in Northumberland, a beautiful place steeped in culture and history. A perfect place to open her bookshop. That was the plan till she met Mary. It was over coffee one day that Mary told her what she did for a living. Instead of being shocked, Holly was fascinated. "It's good money, but it's lonely work, if that makes sense. Working from my flat is not ideal, but it puts food on the table." Long, excited discussions later, Holly put down a deposit on a large red-brick double-story fixer-upper. Once word got out, some of the local men volunteered to help, and they got the old red brick into good shape in no time for very little cost. There were protests, of course, especially from the older folk who thought she was bringing disrepute to their precious town. So once Holly had furnished the downstairs area, she invited the townies for a meeting. The crowd arrived with perverse curiosity, expecting to see bright, gaudy furnishings, lewd art on the walls, and they certainly did not expect refreshments. Instead, they had no choice but to be impressed by the tasteful, muted grays, soft, gentle greens, and plush creams. There was nothing sordid about the art at all, and they enjoyed the delicate canapes and the sweet wine. Dressed in her Sunday best, her wild red curls tamed into an elegant upstyle, Holly bravely stood before the adversity and began to speak. She broke the ice with a famous story about Winston Churchill. Churchill says, "Madam, would you sleep with me for £5,000,000? The socialite says, "My goodness, Mr. Churchill, well, I suppose we would have to discuss terms, of course." Churchill, "Would you sleep with me for £5?" Socialite: Mr. Churchill, what kind of woman do you think I am? Churchill replies, Madam, we've already established that. Now we're haggling about the price. And it was not, she continued, Isabel Patterson who said that the only way to prevent prostitution would be to imprison half the human race. As the crowd began to thaw, she spoke about the merits of the oldest profession and questioned why something that was legal when done for free was immoral when it was paid for. Holly's is not here to bring this beautiful town into disrepute. Holly's will be a haven for the ladies who want to work here in comfort and be protected. The difference is that now the ladies will be safe, and I will take prostitution off your streets. When she spoke about the financial rewards of attracting more wealthy businessmen to the town, the crowd was sold. Holly basked in the noon sun as it shone through the window. She was happy. Her business was successful, and the 7 ladies who worked for her were like family. Most of the community stood by her now, but there was one fly in the ointment, and she really needed to do something about him soon, or he could destroy everything. It was time to put her plan into action. Holly dressed as smartly as she always did, looking more like a school teacher than a madam, and she went into town to make the arrangements. The following Sunday, as expected, the fly in the ointment arrived with the mayor in tow. Good afternoon, Miss Dawson. The mayor was rigged in full pomposity with medals and badges all over his front. I have no choice but to inform you of an official complaint by Mr. Bosworth here. The law clearly states that there should be any official objections. Oh, do come in and have a seat in the lounge, Mr. Mayor. You too, of course, Mr. Bosworth. I have some refreshments ready for you. There's no need for that, the mayor protested, but soon found himself seated in a very comfortable chair, having a glass of sherry. Then there was a flurry of activity as 2 kitchen maids brought platters of snacks. A cleaning woman came in to fetch a duster cloth she had left behind. A lady smiled and greeted them from behind the bar. The 2 men did not stay very long, but they did not leave before Holly had a document in her hands signed by the mayor and Mr. Bosworth, stating that objections were withdrawn and Holly's doors would remain open. That's the story, as she told it to me when I visited her last week, Frankie was saying. And it's a great story, but how did she persuade the mayor and Mr. Bosworth to change their minds, someone wanted to know. Well now, Frankie smiled, were the 2 kitchen maids not Mr. Bosworth's own daughters? And the cleaner was the mayor's own sister, and the bar lady was his niece. The 2 men were not going to stick around to find out if anybody else related to them worked there in a less reputable capacity. She's a clever one, our Holly. The end. Well, my loves, I hope you've enjoyed these stories. I'll find others for you if you like these. I'd just like us to comfort one another during this difficulty. I'd like us to just be remembering this few years past now and saying we all got through it and we're kind and loving to one another. And I'll do another video for you next week. Please take care, be safe, and be well. Bye-bye.